Hey everyone, it's James at geometriccharts.com. This is the 4-hour chart of Bitcoin, BTC, USD on the Bitfinex exchange. First of all, let me just say it is not investment advice. Second of all, it is Halloween, and I definitely think Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market gave everyone a little scare today with that nice little drop and then a quick pop shortly after. So I think that was the market's way of playing a little, or being a little humorous, I should say, in that sense. But in the more serious side of things with Bitcoin, it's currently hovering on an overall uptrend line set, right? So there is a kind of like this buffer zone. Like we have this little one and we can kind of make like another little happy line right over here, down here. So there is that buffer zone that we do have in Bitcoin. That's why I kind of said like around 6,300 to about 6,200. I've said 6,200 quite a few times in my prior videos. But regardless of this, at the end of the day, Bitcoin is definitely struggling to maintain this zone. And when I do look at the chart, I can see the obvious monster bear flag formation in Bitcoin. I can see the entire market from Bitcoin, Neo, Litecoin, Ethereum, EOS, Ripple, ADA, IOTA, Bitcoin Cash. I mean, the list goes on. A lot of these are acting literally identical. I mean, absolutely identical. And that's definitely not by coincidence. It's done by design. And unfortunately, this market is becoming very, very tight in price action, which can lead to these violent moves that you see. Because at the end of the day, the way that I can explain it to make sense is that everything is just a transference of energy. Everything is. And that's all this chart is showing us, is the transference of energy. And we're seeing how this energy is vibrating. And as it's getting tighter and tighter and tighter, it's getting ready to make dramatic swings like you would tighten a spring. So as you tighten that spring and tighten that spring and tighten that spring, eventually if you tighten it too much, it's going to break and then let loose. And it's going to do a violent move, in which case you can get seriously hurt. And you probably, if you've done that as a kid, you probably did get hurt or smacked with it. And it hurts really bad. It can cut you open as well. But the point is that there's a lot of energy being cooked up in these tiny, tiny price moves. And Bitcoin so far started expending it to the downside. And I said, as long as we can hold above here, I still think there's more upside to this market. But if this energy starts to get expended to the downside or up to the upside, it's going to be violent overall. In the last iteration we saw of that, you can clearly see how violent things became, right? And unfortunately, you have the media and social media, etc., hyping this crap up, and people start chasing it in and thinking that's it. This is the boom. It's going to 20,000 tomorrow, and based on this spike, it literally looked like it was going to go to 20,000 within 8 hours. But it's just the nature of this beast is pump and dump. At the end of the day, there's no sustained price movement at all. And there's a couple of things I think Bitcoin is definitely in the normalization phase. And I don't think a lot of people are willing to come to grips with that. And instead there's a lot of people, which I think they're definitely being beat out, looking for this crazy wild swing to 20,000, 40,000, or any other crazy number out there way beyond that. And it's just not happening. And the reason why is during this normalization phase, we are basing out. We're creating that base. This is the normalization. This is more than likely where Bitcoin is going to have its home. And if it's going to have its home here, the next thing to happen is essentially these big buyers and big sellers, just these whales, are going to start cannibalizing each other because the retail is such a small minority in this market. And I think retail is a very, very small sliver in the cryptocurrency base. And instead, what I think is happening is if Bitcoin is going to last and cryptocurrencies will be around in the future, then it's going to require complete domination and control of the market. And it's not going to be easy because people are going to have to be knocked out, especially the people who got in Bitcoin in the freaking single digits, rode this thing up, and have amassed a serious amount of wealth, even with the monster haircut from 20,000 to 6,000. If you've been holding since the single digits, you have an insane amount of wealth created in this market, and it would make you a significant player, especially if you got in with a decent amount of money in the beginning. So what's going to happen is these individuals who more than likely rode it up, they either sold into the 6,000 bottom or these whips, or they're still hanging on for dear life, but they're going to be cannibalized by the cartel that's going to move in for complete domination of the market. It's like the gold market, for example, is completely dominated by the banking cartel. There's no way in heck, you are going to enter that market space without being completely dominated by them. And it's just the nature of the beast. And I definitely think, and the same thing with fiat. I mean, fiat is completely dominated. It's not like some random billionaire is going to enter the market and dominate. No way in hell. Like, they're going to get eaten alive and smashed right into the ground. And that's what I think. That's what I think is happening in Bitcoin, in the cryptocurrency market, if it's going to last. And I think it is. Like, when I first started covering Bitcoin, I really did not have faith in the longevity of the asset. But over time, I see the phases it's going through. I see the volume that keeps flowing in and out of Bitcoin. And there's a lot of money. I mean, there's $4.2 billion transacted in 24 hours. That's a lot of money being transferred in and out of a market for something that's not even tangible. So, I mean, it's just like, I see the future of cryptocurrency, and I don't think it is going to necessarily die, but the face of cryptocurrency may change, meaning it may not be Bitcoin, or it may be Bitcoin. Bitcoin's a household name. I guarantee you, even old people nowadays who have no idea about technology have probably heard Bitcoin, right? So even the person under the rock has probably heard the name Bitcoin. There's an indoctrination happening across all media platforms. Bitcoin this, Bitcoin that, Bitcoin this, Bitcoin that. Continuous hammering. So to me, it makes logical sense, even though from an underlying standpoint, I know people have their arguments against why Bitcoin is not the best to be, essentially the face of cryptocurrency. It's already been primed into everyone's minds, into the masses' minds, right? Like, you have Kim Kardashian buying a Bitcoin. I think Eminem said something about Bitcoin. I don't know. I don't follow them, but I did see the Kim Kardashian article as well. So again, it's being primed, and it's all about that psychological aspect of what's happening. And so as the market's being primed for this, if this is going to be the asset to hang around and become like that cover for cryptocurrency, in a sense it already has and has retained its dominance, then it's going to have to be dominated by the controlling powers. In which case, I say those controlling powers are the banking cartel from being in the financial industries from so long. When the banks move in, they move in together, and it's just like the cartel, and you're not going to win at all. So the reason in me talking about all this and going off on this crazy tangent that a lot of people probably don't understand or whatever is that we're seeing the hammering of this market to a level of normalization. We're seeing the violent swings in this market. And to me, logically, what's happening is that not only have the retail traders who thought they were going to get rich quick completely been slaughtered, laid out as many times as they possibly were able to get back up, and unfortunately the undoing by their trusted, quote unquote media. But anyways, is now we're starting to see, I believe, the cannibalization of other whales in the market, knocking these big players out. And the reason why, beyond just, you know, everything I said, was that we can see how the multi-stage process up, multi-stage process up, kind of a multi-stage process, violent fall off, pop, violent fall off. So what I think is happening is that we're hitting these air pockets. These air pockets are probably more than likely stops placed by these whales or sell points or, you know, whatever, and they're being hit, and then it's essentially there's nothing else coming in after that, and then the market's collapsing in on itself. So it's kind of like an air pocket. Like you're riding, you hit it, and then all of a sudden, propellers shut off, and this violent move down happens. And you can see the moves down are becoming significantly more violent. And even the move up. I mean, look at the last move. This is an insane move here. So there's no way technical analysis was going to tell anyone it was going to hit there. I mean, yes, I have this line and it's showing the direction of Bitcoin, but what it's showing is that we have essentially smashed through what was support, and now we're using it as resistance, which is a clear sign of weakness in this market. Even though on the short term things look good, on the longer term things look bad still. And we are getting to a point of tighter and tighter and tighter price action, and this is going to lead to a significant move in Bitcoin if it's not completely hammered out. The other way to resolve, and what I mean by that is there's two ways of resolution here. We are either going to make a violent move, and I'm not trying to play both sides so I'm right. It's not the point. The point is just explaining the two different moves based on what's happening in the energy of this market. And it's either going to lead to a very violent move, which is going to be bigger than these as well. So we're tightening down, tightening down, tightening down, tightening down. Boom, massive move, up or down, right? Or what's going to happen is we're going to continue chopping, 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 pop, chopping, 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 pop, chop, chop, pop, pop, you know, something like this. And we're going to continue just to kind of base out and churn, and it's going to make it extremely, extremely, extremely difficult. I cannot emphasize enough for people to trade because of this essentially hammering of the market. And it's going to be very violent, but majority of it is going to be a bulk of tighter and tighter price action, which is going to make everything tough. But either way, we have fallen on the bigger term, the longer term. I'm definitely bearish on Bitcoin. Not to the point that I think it's going to drop off a cliff and go to zero, but I just think there's definitely some hard times to come for the market. I just do not see this thing turning around on a dime and rocket launch into 12,000, 20,000, 40,000, whatever the numbers are out there. I think it's definitely going to undergo some pain, and we're seeing that through this clear uptrend line that's become resistance. We're also seeing it through just a point of equilibrium in this market that we've spent so much time, and every single time we try to get above this point, it fails. It fails every single time. So there's a lot of weakness, although the short term looks good, right? The short term looks perfect. We got higher lows, and we're continuing to do that. But now what we're starting to see is this kind of fallout here. So depending on what happens in Bitcoin, if Bitcoin cannot hold above 6,200, I definitely think we're going to start beelining it down to 5,700 or lower. If we start doing that, it could lead to some very, very significant problems in Bitcoin. And what I mean by that is that we would easily test the low 5,000s, and if that cannot hold up, then honestly at that point, I think it's anybody's guess at where we're going to drop, but I think it's going to be very significant, just like it would be if we hold above 6,200, start to chop out, and then produce that leg up. That leg up could start to actually break above and sustain that price movement above these local highs. So I know people are probably looking for exact numbers or trade, stuff like that. But right now we're at a point where price action is so tight and volatile. it's very, very difficult to talk about the next direction of price. I mean, I have a very hard time telling on exactly where Bitcoin's going to go looking at this chart and looking at the price action. All I know is the overall theme of this market is definitely bearish, and that's not going to change without some significant changes in price and volume. So that's it for tonight. I hope everybody has a great night, great day, depending on where you are in the world. I'll do another video on Friday. If you hear the noise in the back, that's my 3-year-old running around like a maniac. But I'll do another video on Friday. That video, hopefully, I have some more price action to work with to at least talk more about the short term. But right now, there's so much volatility. It's very, very difficult.